Are you a sad individual living under a Parisian opera house and dropping chandeliers on people's heads for fun? Well, you may want to stop because that's a crime and get yourself a podcast. How do you do that? Easy. It's with Anchor. Anchor is a totally free app and website, and you can record from your phone or your computer. You don't need fancy smancy equipment. Seriously, I have recorded podcasts from my bathtub while I was bathing. Anchor is free and super easy to use. Anchor has really simple podcasting tools. You sign up and then you start podcasting. It really is that simple. Within an hour of starting my podcast, I was already distributed on Spotify. Now I'm on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Breaker, and Radio Public. So look for the app or the website. The website is anchor.fm, and the app, just go to your friendly local app store and look up Anchor. That's ANCHOR. Happy podcasting! Let's do the time slip again. Hello and welcome to the Quiet Study Breakfast podcast, the podcast where we are discussing season 2 of Westworld, episode 5, Akane no Mai, which is interesting because it basically means Akane's dance, and Akane as a noun is also a plant that is used to produce a red dye. So if you're going to venture further into it, you could say red dance, which is completely appropriate for what happens at the end of the episode. But anyway, let's talk about some things. This is a reaction, so we're not gonna go through like a deep dive through the episode itself, but that sex scene was so badly shot. Like, I'm convinced that they did it on purpose just to like make it like really weird and uncomfortable, because it was like a lot of darkness, body parts that could have been a knee, an elbow, maybe somebody's back, and it wasn't sensual at all, which is interesting considering what we find out like in the next part of Dolores and Teddy's relationship. So basically there's this whole thing like where Teddy's too much of a sweetheart and Dolores is afraid that he will die. So she does what anybody does, not really though, and alters his personality. OG Teddy. It's interesting. I tried to get a screenshot of this because I wanted to put it on the page just so that you guys could see it. Our poor boy Teddy had zero sensuality and zero sense of humor. But Dolores ramped up a bunch of settings. One was cruelty, aggression, perception, but notice she did not bump up the sensuality or humor. So pretty sure that they're done. At least she's done with them. And a prediction I would like to make right now is that Teddy is going to off himself. I guess he jumps into the sea with all the other people. I don't know, but I can't imagine him, because it's not like he's deleted, so it's like he'll know what happened. And I can't imagine that Teddy would want to live with that. I can't imagine that that would be good for his sense of self. So pretty sure that that's how Teddy dies, which is sad, but it's interesting because I honestly can't tell at this point if Dolores is actually free or she's just following Wyatt's loop. Because I can't help but think that if you really, really love somebody, you would risk letting them do things at the risk of their health. I mean, like, now that they know that hosts can die, yeah, that's actually a thing. So I get that she's concerned about him, but can you really love somebody if you're willing to alter them like that? Because that's like a huge violation of autonomy. You know what I mean? I mean, like, if Teddy asked for that, cool, but Teddy never would because he's Teddy. Teddy. It just wanted to keep the theme going of constantly saying his name. But, it was really weird because there was this whole talk about blue tongues and with the cattle, not people. There were no hosts with blue tongues, but Teddy's like, oh, well, I take them and I protect them, and Dolores is like, yeah, we just burn them all. And I can't help but wondering, is that Dolores or is it Wyatt? But the main thing that I am so excited about is that we finally got Shogun World. After it being teased in season 1, I was so excited. So, wow, that Shogun, awful man. And apparently he was losing cortical fluid, so did that make him as monstrous because of like the cognitive dissonance and like the time thing? Because he didn't seem to have problems with aphasia, but yeah, he found out about Maeve's superpower and basically had his people's ears burned. But Maeve's superpower is gotten so much more OP because now apparently she can like mind meld with people and make them do things. It's very strange. But anyway, so basically I really like the part where they came into like the Shogun version of Sweetwater, and it's basically the same scene from episode 1. Like, it's basically a shot-for-shot remake. It's really great. Like, these kids put a bug on a meditating guy's head. Like, in Sweetwater, it was like a drunk guy, and they put like a scorpion on his head, I think. It was great. And Armistice has a crushy poo on the Shogun version world of her, and like, I am living for it. I ship it so hard. But Maeve meets her Doppelbot, which, terrible terminology, which is a Doppelbot because Lee Sizemore had to apparently write 300 stories in 3 weeks. So he just cribbed from Westworld, which, okay. But yeah, it's weird because they're basically the same person in different circumstances. Akane, who is Maeve's double, has a daughter, Sakura. She's not biologically her daughter, but like, which is really interesting because Maeve's daughter was supposed to be biological, right? Because she said that she found her, right? Am I remembering that right? Okay, well now I'm really confused because that's kind of where the doubles in, if that's true. I didn't even think about that. Anyway, not gonna go back to watch because I have a podcast to record. So, the Shogun is demanding Akane give up Sakura, and Akane is like, she's supposed to, in the story, give her up, and she doesn't. She stabs the emissary in the eye, and then lots of violence is about to break up, and Maeve shoots a gun, which in the Sweetwater version, she actually shot someone. In this one, she did it in the air, which is interesting because that's definitely a difference from the loop. The music in this episode is so phenomenal. I love it so much. Like, I'm gonna have to listen to the soundtrack after this because the music is just an absolute thrill and a delight. Like, for the redux of the Sweetwater safe robbery, they do a version of Painted Black, which sounds amazing. And there's a scene where Akane has to dance for the Shogun after Sakura is murdered, and it took me a while to figure it out because it was like, I know the song, I've heard this. And it's Cream by the Wu-Tang Clan, which is just so amazing and so on point considering the fact that they're like based on the ninja samurai thing. So that's fascinating. A lot of things. Lee steals a radio, which I don't think that will work out for him very well. I think that's probably gonna get him killed. But in the beginning, and this was what's interesting to me, is because they were looking for Abernathy. They didn't specify a name, so it could be Peter, it could be Dolores, but considering that Delos already had Peter, like, why would they be looking for him again? Did Dolores break him out? Because remember, this is like 2 different timelines, and I'm not sure how many days it's been into the timeline, because season 2 starts apparently 2 weeks after the massacre where Ford was shot. But was it? Because we know for sure that Bernard is an unreliable narrator. Oh, and speaking of narrators, Clementine met her new double, the new Clementine, and she's all messed up about it because basically she's lobotomized. She kind of remembers who she was, which is so fascinating to me because I would think that, like, after they did the drill thing to the nose, that it would completely destroy everything. So how are she and Peter retaining those specific memories? Because the blue tongue thing was interesting, because I remember I was like, why are they talking about blue tongue again? And Peter actually mentions it when they're in the fort of forlorn sadness. I don't, Fort Forlorn, whatever it was called. He mentions that he's worried about blue tongue. So how, I mean, like, I get that Lee basically gave him like a bunch of personalities to get him to function, to get to the train. That was the whole thing. I gotta get on the train. But Clementine, they didn't do that unless did Ford do it? That's so interesting. That's something I wanted to I want to watch out for, and I want to think about a lot. But so we get to the Maeve thing, which is very interesting to me because it seems like there's a little bit of a discrepancy. So Maeve has this ability to talk to people, to talk to the host specifically, and she can get them to do things for her. But apparently it has to be in their language, which is fascinating to me and kind of makes sense. But after everything goes down and Sakura is killed and Akane kills the Shogun, there is a guy who's like, assassins, and he calls for them to be beheaded, Akane and Maeve. Now, I mentioned earlier that the Shogun basically had their ears burned so they wouldn't be able to hear. How? If they had their ears burned, then how were these different people? I don't know. I am very confused about that. But I think that Maeve is getting stronger with her powers, and that's interesting. But honestly, if something doesn't happen to kind of tamp her down, it's gonna get really boring to just like watch Maeve, you know, just basically steamroll through everybody. Like, I mean, and I wonder if this is like, it's supposed to like make you feel that way to kind of parallel with William's thing, about like, oh, well, this is too easy. I want it to be hard. And I think that that's really interesting. And I wanted to hold on to that thought and think on that too. But anyway, so those are my thoughts for Okane no Mai. I really, really enjoyed this one. I'm really excited to see where the season is going. I hope you're having as much fun listening to this as I am watching the show. And I am planning on doing a live watch of the season 2 season finale on YouTube. So if I can do that without worrying about getting busted for copyright infringement, I will do that. Anyway, yeah, have a happy day. Keep it pretty. Things are getting wild in Westworld land. So, wow, this episode is a doozy. I loved it and I kind of hated it. So, let's go and talk about what happened. So, the scenes with Maeve are just brilliant. Tanti Newton is killing it, and she is amazing, and I love her, and she is so good. The scene where Akane is cutting out Sakura's heart is just like, you could see on my face that it was like her heart was being cut out, and that was just so wonderful. And I think I may have figured out the timeline, so I may be off about this, but we have Charlotte and Bernard escaping Dolores. Then they go to the place with the DNA. I can't remember what it is. Was it like 22? I don't know. But anyway, so then Charlotte ditches Bernard to go after Abernathy. She Stubbs and Abernathy, because I'm just gonna leave Bernard out of the equation because it's already been proven that he's an unreliable narrator. So take Bernard out, and you have Charlotte. They have Abernathy. They take him to the mesa. They bolt him to the chair, which I wonder how many times that's happened. That was horrifying. That was like genuinely chilling to watch. So you have Abernathy. Charlotte contacts Delos. They send the extraction team, who are very rude and make fun of Stubbs. Then they get the map running, right, in time to see Dolores' train crash into the mesa. But that wasn't the same time that Elsie and Bernard were in the cradle. Even though it was edited to look like that, there's no way, because they're in two different places. So there's that, and that's kind of validating. And Maeve is finally reunited with her daughter. And the Ghost Nation. Okay, so I need to talk about the Ghost Nation and Emily and Stubbs, because this is fascinating to me. Because, my theory was that for some reason Stubbs was a host. And that is looking kind of unlikely now, but maybe it is, because it seems that the Ghost Nation are killing the hosts and hurting the humans, somewhere. But Akacheta, who we saw before, and it turns out he's the dude that was appearing in Maeve's window. So maybe he was trying to help her even then. Oh, that's fascinating. But anyway, so when the rest of the Ghost Nation there, Akacheta's like, come with me, and Maeve's like, no, your path leads to hell. I'm not gonna do that. So they run and run. So, but before, when they had Stubbs and Emily, they separated them. So, I don't know. It's so strange trying to figure out what's going on with the Ghost Nation, because, like, how... If Akacheta didn't have... And he was one of the older hosts. He was the one at the party and reunion, right? So, but he didn't have the thing that Dolores did he? Because, I mean, it seems that Maeve can, like, kind of open people's minds, like, get them out of the Matrix, if you will. But maybe he never died. Like, maybe he just kept on going and for some reason was never wiped? I mean, that's really the only reason I can explain that. I don't know. It's very confusing. It's a mind breaker. So the way that they get to the homestead from Shogun World is by going in a trash chute, which is where they dump the bodies, and it's hideous. It's really gross. Oh, and the Japanese version of Armistice, who I still don't know her name, and that really bothers me. And I don't want to, like, look up the character's name on IMDb or anything, because spoilers. Like, I don't want to know if, like, people are playing doubles, because that happened to me with Supernatural. It made me so mad. And I would love to see a timeline, like, of how many days have gone by, because... So there was an extraction team before, but that's not the same extraction team that we saw in Journey into Night. I mean, they look completely different, and it's not QA from the park. So basically, there was a revolution. QA stepped in, tried to contain it. They were killed. They get Abernathy. Charlotte sends a message to Delos. They send a team. Presumably those people got killed, and they lose Abernathy again? I don't know. It's just very strange. But the most intriguing part of this episode, I thought, well, besides Bernard getting his head sawed into, was the fact that it's called Phase Space. Now, this is one that I actually had to look it up because, like, I had no knowledge about that. My weakness did not help me tragically. So Phase Space is basically the idea of setting out ideas and all the varying possibilities. So, like, imagine a graph, and it kind of like the exponential thing in math class when we were kids. Every single possibility would be laid out on this graph. So, what if all of this isn't really happening? What if this is the possibilities of the outcome, and, like, these aren't on concurrent timelines? Like, the Dolores story with her on the train is a different one from the one at Fort Forlorn? I don't know. The fort. The sad fort where most people died. So, Emily and Mibby meet, and this one, like, they actually have, like, a conversation, and I think Mibby tries to trick her. Like, it could have gone that, like, honestly, he didn't remember that she loved the elephants and Juliet was afraid of them, but I don't know, that just seems, like, really out of character. Like, I think that he remembers everything about his daughter, and his look of surprise was that, like, he didn't realize that she would know that because he was convinced that she's a host. Which is interesting, because I kind of delved into that in 3. I can't remember what that was called, but when she was going to bang Thirsty Boy, and she didn't get shot. I was like, huh, that's interesting. Dude must really be thirsting for a snack. But anyway, so that to me is very interesting because the more they push this, oh, Emily might be a host, it's like, I don't think so. I think that she's a human, and honestly, I think that maybe he's gonna end up killing her somehow because, like, he's going to be convinced that she is a host, and that would be very tragic. Man, I hope it doesn't happen. I really like Emily. Like, I really like her character. So, there's that. And then at the very end, where our poor boy Bernardo has subjected himself to having his head sawed open and having this marble or pearl extracted from it. It could be a marl. It could be a purple. I don't know. It's weird. But apparently that's the data. The data is in this, let's call it a marble. The data is in this marble, and it's extracted and put in like the little Google Home Pod thing. And then Bernard has this memory of getting off the train like Teddy, and I was like, wait, is he connected to Teddy somehow? That's weird, that can't be right. But no, then we see Dolores and Teddy, and before that he sees this dog, which I know for a fact has never been in Sweetwater before. So that was super interesting. So he goes into the Mariposa, and at the piano is our friend, not really though, Robert Ford. And I gotta tell you, Ford has got a lot of explaining to do. So, is the marble that Bernard picked up Ford, is that what they're going with? Because that's fascinating, because just there is so much possibilities, and I was really happy to see Anthony Hopkins again. I just adore him as an actor. He's incredible, and he's been so good at being Robert Ford. It's like a joy to watch him. So I hope that we get more Ford. I hope that we get more Shogun World. And for the love of crackers, can we please have everybody taking a nice, healthy break at Spa World? Okay, thanks. Bye.